Hey, fantasy football fanatics, welcome to another episode of Behind the Frames. So you already have a fan cheering in the background right now. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards, and with me I got my usual cast of characters. Let's go around the frames, and let me introduce everybody. First to my right, your left, some combination. Aaron Pags, how are you doing, sir?
Jorge, it's a beautiful night to say Fantasy Football Live's live.
Hailing from Colorado, we got Mr. Todd Barnes. How are you, Todd?
Not too bad. Just ready to talk some football and ready for football season.
From the Midwest, Mr. Nate Markham. How are you, sir?
Doing good. We are just Sam Bradford days away from football.
Nice. And from the Whale's Vagina, or as we like to call it, San Diego, California. That was an Anchorman reference. Mr. David Ibrahim from FantasyGo.com. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. We prefer the former, Whale's Vagina. That was my kids in the background as well, by the way. There's a good chance you're going to hear that through the next 20, 30 minutes.
Fantastic.
Jorge, it just hit me that we are in every time zone. How have we not said this yet?
That's awesome.
You know what's really something is like, where are we going to find each other? Where are we eventually going to meet? You know, where in the country are we?
Hawaii, for sure. Hawaii.
Where would be a central location in the United States?
Some Caribbean alternative, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'll do that.
Anyhow, so we are very happy to be with you today, folks. We are 1 week away, or at least 8 days away from the start of the NFL season, kicking off with the Texans and the Chiefs in Kansas City. And there's been, a lot of news happening lately, to say the least. You would think with this time of year, with drafts wrapping up and everyone getting ready for their leagues and getting their trophies ready for the season, which, by the way, go to Trophy Smack, use the promo code Fantasy and Frames, see if you get a discount there. You would think that things would be pretty calm, but no, things have actually been pretty hectic from a fantasy standpoint. So we're going to cover that today and tell you what that all means going forward, as well as talk about just, what to expect from us here at Fantasy and Frames going forward. Before we do that, though, I want to give David a shot to plug FantasyGo.com, because we will be on Fantasy Go answering all fantasy questions and being there for all the services that they provide. David, can you tell us more?
Thanks all. Hey, yeah, FantasyGo.com. It's a one-on-one platform for you to get some personal advice from your favorite analysts. We've got over 50, including you guys on there. So if you guys love the Fantasy and Frames crew, just jump on FantasyGo.com, find them, and get some advice to win your league.
Thank you very much, sir. No, we're looking forward to that. We did it last year. We're looking forward to it again this year. It's a great service, people. You get personalized content. We can, either help you take control of your team, or we can do it side by side with you, whatever you feel comfortable with. We're there to help you win a fantasy football championship, or as we call them, four-eyed championships. So speaking of four-eyed championships, we have our tournament, our charity tournament called the Four-Eyed Championships. Go figure. Starting next week. For all those that are participating in the Four-Eyed Championships, just know that now in all of the leagues that we have, and all 48 of you that are participating, you can submit waiver claims for players starting right now. And your claims will go through Monday, and then we'll have, after Monday, a traditional waiver wire week. So please pay attention to your settings on the Sleeper app. Please reach out to your commissioners, ask questions you have there. Otherwise, we're gearing up. And remember, we're doing this for charity. You're representing your charities, trying to get some good donations headed their way, because God knows everyone needs to be in a more charitable mood this time of year and going forward, to be honest with you. And with that, let's just jump into some relevant fantasy news. As you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen, Kamara, Fournette, Mixon, and Derwin. Oh my! Let's give Derwin James some love first and go with that. And Nate, as our resident IDP person here, how much does this suck for the Los Angeles Chargers losing Derwin James for a second year, basically?
Yeah, from obviously IDP standpoint, it's a killer, because he was a legit number one overall defensive back going into the season. I mean, obviously you have the cast of characters of Budda Baker and Jamal. There's a lot of them out there, but Derwin James is the one that I really, really saw slipping to that fourth, fifth overall. I thought I took him in so many leagues. We were talking about that before. I was like, when the news broke, I was crushed, because in every mock draft that Jorge and I had done, I took him. But then I guess I never had him. Premonition. I don't know. It sucks. Sucks for the defensive special teams as a whole if you play in a defensive unit for the Chargers.
speaking of defense and special teams, if he's watching, Ryan Weiss at the Fantasy 5 on Twitter, he writes for the Fantasy Footballers. He does a lot of work with defense special teams content. Head over there, follow him on Twitter, read his articles. He's a great follow there for that. And he's also on fantasygo.com, right, David?
He certainly is.
Nice. That sucks, man. I'm right there with you. I was so looking forward to drafting Derwin James. What made him so good, what's really good about all these strong safeties in IDP is, they don't just play, back in coverage. They get up close to the line of scrimmage. They're basically hybrid linebackers that get you extra tackle numbers. And to lose him again this year, granted, he came back towards the end of last year, but he just wasn't the same player he was his rookie year. It's a huge miss. And the thing is, I don't really know who to give you as a backup to go get in this secondary. And to be honest with you probably wouldn't want to start him anyhow. I think come to think about it, I think the backup that played for him last year was just released by the Chargers. I think this was on Hard Knocks a couple weeks ago. So no clue. We'll, of course, get you this information as we get closer to the start of the season. But huge loss for San Diego. I did it, Nate. I pulled the Nate Markham. I said San Diego, not Los Angeles. So, of course, that is vexing. But we will continue to push forward, and we'll be there to give you all the different IDP options to take the place of Derwin James if you have him on your roster. Now, let's get into some real interesting news. It's really heating up this Wednesday evening. And, while we're on the show right now, while we're on the air, you may hear some breaking news. Right now, probably not. But right now, we're going to talk about Leonard Fournette. Look, man, I have my home league coming up, and I'm at the 6th spot, and I was consistently drafting a couple players back to back, and then 3rd round came along, and I'm like, you know what? Let me get Leonard Fournette. He's a solid back. He's not competing with carries. They're going to be running the ball a lot. I mean, just give me this guy. And then Jacksonville has to go ahead and drop him. Like, what the hell, Aaron? Like, I'm throwing my hands up in the air. What to make of Leonard Fournette getting dropped in Jacksonville?
Well, I mean, obviously, if you're drafting this week before any news breaks, I mean, he's got to go he's got to slip way deep into your drafts now, because if you don't know his situation, we're talking about a guy who, performed at a level based on the amount of touches, just the sheer volume that he got in Jacksonville, being the only running back in town. And if he shows up into another offense where there is a comparable back or somebody who's already cemented themselves as, at least a 50-50 share, then I don't even know where I would take Leonard Fournette now at this point. I definitely can see a few good landing spots, but I can't find that one that's similar to Jacksonville. I don't know if any of you guys have an idea that a place he could land that would be similar to Jacksonville, where you take him in the 3rd, 4th round.
I do, and the little red Fournette, I'm all about him in the Washington football team. I think he would do absolutely well. You've got the aging back in Adrian Peterson there, and I'm not buying the whole love. I don't think he comes in as the number 1 back. You put Fournette there, he's a 3-down back for sure. I think it's a great fit as well. They need a good workhorse running back to open up lanes for McLaurin. If he goes there in Washington, I'm pretty excited about it. More excited than I would of him being in Jacksonville.
Our guy Jake Thompson here this week again brought up some interesting points. He said the Patriots just made room for him, and they did. They just released Mohamed Sanu. I don't know exactly how much that frees up, but that is, of course, extra money they have to bring him in on a 1-year deal, and maybe they can extend him down the road. And another option that's really been heating up this past hour is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And go figure, all this week, all this offseason, and especially this morning, all you heard about Tampa Bay's running back situation was that Ronald Jones is the guy. He's the guy. We have reasons to show you why he's the guy. People can believe he's the guy. It's not just coach speak from Bruce Arians anymore. He is the guy. 10 hours later, the Bucs are seriously interested in Leonard Fournette. Go figure. And Jake Thompson is coming through as well. The Patriots just saved $6 million. Jake, you should be on Behind the Frames. Just reach out, buddy. Good research right here.
Impressive.
They saved $6.5 million. Look, if he went to New England, you have Sony Michel there. You have Damian Harris there. Who cares? Leonard Fournette would be automatically the guy. You look at what happened in the last time the Patriots had a bruising, athletic running back in their roster. That was LeGarrette Blount, and he put up, I think, close to 19 touchdowns last year. It's a running back friendly offense. If they have a running back that can carry the load like that, they have Cam Newton there, who's been looking fantastic in training camp. You add a mobile quarterback to you add an explosive running back to an offense featuring a mobile quarterback. That's automatically going to open up running lanes. It's the age-old adage.
Oh man, Jorge, I couldn't disagree more with you here. Going to the New England backfield is fantasy death for every running back. We already know this. You have no idea what Bill Belichick's game plan is week in and week out, especially with their running backs. So just adding another guy to the mix, that's going to devalue Sony Michel, Damian Harris, and Leonard Fournette. All these guys drop down even further in drafts for me.
I mean, we're forgetting James White because James White is a name you can't forget in that backfield for 100%. Cannot forget.
But even James White, he had that connection with Tom Brady. We got a different quarterback now, right? We've got Cam Newton. So, a lot of those James White catches were just run plays designed for White, lined up in the backfield. That's a lot of his offense. So, there's that short pass the Patriots used with Brady to actually, as runs, basically.
That's the only place I don't think I'd really want to see him go. There, or if he goes to KC. I heard rumors of him backing up Hilaire, but I don't think Fournette wants to go somewhere where he's going to be a backup. He needs to be somewhere where he's a 3-down guy. Now, look, his rushing yards last year, they did take a dip, but you got to remember, Fournette has some top-end speed. His rookie year, he very much impressed. So if he can go on the right team with a decent offensive line, you're getting an absolute bargain. He's probably going in the 8th round right now, 7th round. I mean, that's value for a guy.
I mean, if you're drafting right now, 8th round,
right now,
I think it's still too rich for me. Not by much, maybe 10th round. But I mean, at this point, you're kind of, if you think he's the guy, then you have to reach at that point to take him to make sure. If you think he's going to have a landing spot, if he doesn't have one already. By the time
there's a lot of question marks around Leonard Fournette right now, but that just freed up all the question marks around the backfield. Are y'all taking Chris Thompson or Raquel Armstead at all?
No,
I don't
know.
No, David, I saw you put out one of your what's the
TikToks.
Thank you. Sorry.
TikToks.
You put out one of your TikTok videos yesterday talking about you want no part of this backfield in Jacksonville.
There's no clear number one. I don't think it's worth it. There's Chris Thompson. You got Armstead. Who knows who it's going to be? Who knows if they're going to find someone in free agency as well? Yeah, my gut feeling is they're going to try find a 3-down back to eventually replace him.
But the thing is what I mean, do you think their release, it can't just be a cap casualty, right? I mean, it can't be them trying to save money. It's got to be some spite of some sort, because there's no point in them actually releasing him, having the dead cap space, and then saving a whole $4 million if they go out to try to find a free agent. Because what free agent's going to actually be more valuable than what Fournette could have brought? I mean, am I often thinking that there's something behind the scenes that we're missing?
Trevor Lawrence is much more valuable to the Jacksonville Jaguars than Leonard Fournette is.
I think they just want to suck this year.
But by all accounts, people thinking that if having Fournette would make them worse somehow. That's not my take. That's what if you talk to a lot of the analysts, they think that him being there is worse than being anything else. They assume that he's not a good fantasy.
These are the same guys, Nate, going into last season that told you the Jaguars were the team that would take down the AFC South and be in the playoffs. And
exactly.
I'll tell you what, though, this Fournette news, you know who this helps out? This helps out DJ Chark.
Yeah,
his draft stock is rising heading into the final week of fantasy football drafts.
You should want him anyway, regardless of
no matter what, they're going to have to throw.
Yeah, see, right. I'm going to go the other way here. I'm going to disagree with you because I think it's going to do nothing but draw double coverage to him. Now, is DJ Chark the caliber player who can really, separate himself? We saw that when Antonio Brown left with Juju Smith-Schuster, he didn't have the capacity to be a great number one. The thing with Leonard Fournette is defenses had to respect him, and they stacked the box a lot with Fournette, which opened up lanes. So I think it hurts Chark, to be honest. I'm not as excited about Chark now being the only weapon in Jacksonville.
So I don't know. I think I disagree on 2 points. So with going back to your talk about the Steelers and Juju, I don't think they had enough time to piece together whether or not he can be a viable number one without Antonio Brown. With considering Big Ben went down week 2, I think we're still waiting for that answer, which is why I personally think his draft stock is a little bit overinflated because of that very question. Going back to what you were saying as far as DJ Chark is concerned, I just think it's an issue of volume that makes him fantasy viable. He may not be able to turn up field and get a lot of yards after the catch, but he is going to get targeted, especially with Gardner Minshew and his connection, and especially in the red zone. They actually were pretty copacetic when they were with each other in the red zone and scoring position.
But
So
when we're talking about the
there,
Jaguars
but-
passing, aren't we talking about garbage time, man? I mean, that's like the hidden fantasy secret here is to find these garbage time wide receivers in PPR at least. I think
Allen
that's
Robinson was the garbage time wide receiver with Blake Bortles. Why can't that be the case with
exactly?
I mean, maybe that's just the help for. Oh yeah, actually, that's Laviska is actually a good take there, Jeremiah. Because between any one of them, you go, is it going to be Dede? Is it going to be Chris Conley? Which Conley was, earlier in the season, he was one that I thought might break out this year with them, just because of his size, because of his athleticism, his red zone presence was big with Gardner Minshew when in limited time. It's only been a season, but.
Do you guys remember Conley's Achilles tear when he was in KC? They showed that thing on slow-mo. Oh, man, that was brutal. That was
I do
brutal
remember
stuff.
that. You saw it.
It snapped like a rubber band. It was horrible. Anyway.
But yeah, we've been bringing up a lot of Jacksonville wide receivers.
Thanks for the graphic imagery there, David.
No worries. Google it, everyone. Google it. Thank you.
And the one wide receiver that I don't think is probably ever going to come off the field is Dede. And I don't ever think he gets enough love, especially in PPR because – well, I think he's 66 and 101 on reception and targets last 2 years, something like that. But I know it's over 100 targets the last 2 seasons. I know for sure he's not coming off the field. He's their slot guy, so he won't be off the field. So I mean, if we're looking for some garbage time, Dede could be up for it.
Well,
that's
a
a very
name
good
I want to throw out real quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on Fournette, but Devonta Freeman. Do you guys see him coming in?
Again, that goes back to the money talk. If he's not willing to sign with Seattle for $3 million, why would Jacksonville throw $4 million at Devonta Freeman? Now, I'm not saying that that's not a possibility. If he goes there, I think he could immediately return. And Ken's jumping; he's doing cartwheels if he wouldn't hurt himself. I'm sure, because then his Devonta Freeman pick would change out.
I just don't know why Jacksonville would do that. It doesn't make sense. Why cut Fournette to sign Devonta?
I don't know.
These only they know.
This is the Jacksonville Jaguars that we're talking about. So
I'm personally excited about picking him up. I mean, if I can grab him in the 8th round, we've all spoken about the running back cliff that falls off about the middle of the 3rd round. Yeah, you're getting a guy who, it's a gamble, but if he lands on the right spot, you've got a potential early to mid 3rd round talent that you got in the 8th round. When you're getting your wide receiver 3s, you're getting your AJ Greens. Those kind of guys.
When Leonard Fournette got cut, that was actually one of the first names that popped in my head was Devonta. Not because I thought he was going to get signed by Jacksonville, but more because I was trying to see Fournette's value. And, I mean, you think about it, Devonta and Fournette in the right spots can produce RB1 weeks on the regular, RB2 weeks consistently. So
Definitely.
those 2 guys that when I'm thinking about what I value Fournette at, I'm looking at Devonta Freeman, and I'm thinking it's a similar situation.
8 days before the season, we're talking about the worst offense in the NFL.
exactly right. That's
Pretty much. Yeah, so the news is very fluid with Fournette. You're scrolling your Twitter timeline. It's the Pats, it's the Bucks, it's the Pats. Watch it be some destination that helps no one. So, yay, fantasy football.
right.
Well, let's move on to our next player that we'll talk about. Look, again, news came out yesterday. He had missed the 3 practices. There was issues about potential contract, or there was a speculation about contract issues. Turns out that there was a back injury and an epidural shot. Of course, we're talking about Alvin Kamara. I think it goes without saying that even though things seem to be heading back to normalcy there in New Orleans, drafting Latavius Murray is almost a must if you are drafting Kamara in the 1st round. Wouldn't you think there, David?
My question more so is it Kamara or Kamara?
Tomato. I mean,
Thoughts? Look, I'm not a massive proponent of. I think Murray's getting way overdrafted. It's just a power play. We saw what happened yesterday. News came out about a potential trade. I think that was the Saints throwing out in the atmosphere that, hey, we're willing to walk away from you. We want you, but don't think that you've got all the power. So
That's exactly right.
I see him in New Orleans. It's just a power play for a contract.
Mm-hmm.
He knows that he wants to be there. He knows that the Saints are potentially primed to maybe be a serious Super Bowl contender. He's not going to walk away from that. He just wants to get paid. So I can see him nowhere but New Orleans. So I'm not paying that premium that is currently going on Latavius Murray right now.
you know what? Wouldn't it be something if the Vikings traded Dalvin Cook to the Saints for Alvin Kamara?
Oh, wow. That'd be huge.
Both are looking for contracts. Are looking for the next. Just throwing that out there. That would be pretty impressive if we saw that. No, I'm with you there, but I think it's the shot. I think it's the issue with the back injury that concerns me. That I think bumps up Latavius Murray's draft value right there, because that is a little bit weird. You know, there are a lot of good fantasy PTs out there, or physical therapists in the fantasy football world. Matthew Betts is one of them, with the fantasy footballers. There is some concern as far as the reasoning for why they're giving him a shot. They said if it's has to do with the lumbar issue, then it's a bad thing. If it has to do just with some mild
so Jorge, one thing they came out with
back injuries
is they announced that they believe it's from an SI joint inflammation. And one of the areas, I actually worked in pain management for about 10 years where we did epidural shots for SI joint inflammation. And your SI joint is it's a non-movable joint. And with the inflammation, that epidural can be highly effective and can immediately return. And actually, I'm not trying to say that there's not concerns, because obviously you have contract concerns. Any epidural is worse than no epidural. That's obvious. No one would rather have that. But maybe this is a chance for him to get into the season and actually be pain-free to start off. I'm not trying to, paint with the positive brush, but that's maybe a take on it that could be positive.
There's a couple of things I want to say, and Todd, you mentioned this point a bunch of times, is that Kamara has never had has never had Alvin Tomato has never had that many touches, right? He has 150, 160 a year, right? And that's his sweet spot. He's not a 3-down back. So if anything, I think it fares well for him. And to the other point is that we've seen Latavius Murray try and be a 3-down back. We saw it in Oakland. We saw it in Minnesota. He's not a 3-down back, guys. Yes, he did okay for that little stint that Kamara was out last year, but I'm not believing in him as a 3-down back because I've seen it before, and this is his, 5th year in the league? I can't see him all of a sudden in his 6th year in the league becoming a stud 3-down back. Yeah,
but if you're drafting Kamara in the first round of your drafts, you're playing where you get points for receptions. And so, his guy's a receiver half the time and also gets, 140 carries. Or whatever he gets, I don't know how many.
What is it? 81 catches every single year he's been in the league.
Exactly.
Every year he's been in the league. I mean, he is what you want James White to be, right?
So I'll phrase this for everybody now, knowing that where with these concerns, if you're looking at that pick 4, 5, and you have a Derrick Henry and you have an Alvin Kamara, tomato, you have the volume versus value proposition there. Do you want the volume of Derrick Henry, or do you want the value of the touches of Alvin Kamara?
As somebody who's picking in the sweet 6 spot, who's going to be facing,
there you go.
I'll take Derrick Henry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll bypass the PPR upside because you got to remember, Deion Lewis isn't there in Tennessee. There's no real viable pass catching option. I'm not saying Derrick Henry is going to become this otherworldly running back. Oh wait, he already is. That can catch passes. But give me somebody who's not injured or has no contract issues and who's proven that they can be a viable fantasy running back and be worthy of a first-round pick. I'll take Derrick Henry.
I'll take the 5 catches every week.
Todd, who are you taking? You're the registered Saints fan?
I mean, I am the Saints fan. I love Alvin Kamara, and I'm personally taking Derrick Henry just because that's a run-first offense. So I think he's going to be getting all the work. In PPR, though, 81 catches in 3 straight seasons now. I don't know how you really pass that up. I mean, that's
No one plays in standard,
mean-
do they? I mean,
yeah. No one plays in
Yeah.
standard anymore,
Stop
and
it.
you think half point still, but
the half point,
you
you
thi-
still take it. You're still taking
I'm-
Derrick
yeah.
Henry?
I'm all about
No.
Henry, guys. I want the guy.
I really like Derrick Henry this year.
Wow.
The offense is centered around Henry. You know, I know he's not catching that many passes, but I want the guy who, if they're in the 10-yard line, I know I've got a good chance of getting 6 points. So, yes, you're giving up 3 or 4 catches potentially a game or
5.
something to that effect. 5.
Right.
But
That's 80.
you know that, last year Derrick Henry got, 15 rushing touchdowns? It was the most rushing touchdowns, second most total touchdowns, only behind Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, give me that guy all day long who, in the red zone, I know I got a good chance.
Kamara's a walking touchdown.
Oh, man.
I
So Jeremiah,
I knew Tannehill was coming. I knew
Yeah,
it.
Jeremiah. Yep, you're out. See you, buddy.
You done did it, man.
Thanks for listening.
Tannehill will not suck. Okay, he'll be close to a top 12 quarterback this year.
All roads lead.
I am on the
to
Tannehill bandwagon. Every
12.
single one of these people will tell you that Tannehill is just an expensive quarterback who's going to hand off the ball to Derrick Henry. I'm not buying it, but thank you for participating.
I saw David post his best play of the year last season on Twitter.
The handoff.
Yeah, the handoff. That was a good one.
That's great.
All right, let's wrap up the show real quick. Let's talk about Joe Mixon. He gets his contract. The migraines go away. They got they got their left tackle returning, who was a first-round pick last year. They addressed the right guard position. Obviously, they wanted to go after right tackle, but they just didn't have enough picks or bodies to select to fill in that spot. So, they got the left side of the offensive line going well. They have a running back who in yards created was one of the top in the NFL despite playing on a bad team. He had a bad start to the season last year, but as the offensive line got better, he got better in terms of play on the field and fantasy production. Go figure, a running back needs a good, healthy offensive line to be successful. Heading into 2018, 2018. Wow, that's
Warhead.
Good
I know,
Lord.
where did that come from?
Wow.
2 years off.
Yeah, just a bit off. Heading into 2020, they have all these pass catching options now, stretching the field, spreading the field, opening up things for Joe Mixon. Are we sold on Joe Mixon being a first round pick? Is he a 1-2 turn person?
Can I just apologize to Joe Mixon first? A couple weeks ago, I called him boring and not the guy I want to target in the first round. I take it all back. Kamara now with the epidural, Miles Sanders with his hamstring, Kenyon Drake in a boot. Give me the safe running back if I'm going to take a running back. I'm back on Joe Mixon train. Back on.
David, I know you're
Welcome back.
No, I'm on team Joe. Move on, not Mixon, guys. Seriously, there's so many better options. Give me Nick Chubb. Give me Josh Jacobs. Give me some 3-down workhorse backs that I know are going to be successful. Not guys that I have to give 25
I smell a
touches.
side bet here, Nate. I smell
I
a
am-
side bet.
I'll take
you
it
better
all
believe
day
it.
long.
As soon as we get off the air.
He was only effective when he was given 20-plus touches a game. You cannot guarantee that now, assuming they have the receivers there. And they got a quality quarterback in Joe Burrow as well.
But that's a product of poor coaching as far as a philosophy going into that. I think that once Zach Taylor decided and realized that, wow, if I get Joe Mixon 20 touches,
My best player.
we actually have chance to win games. And go back and look at those final games, and they played extremely well. And let's say, David, I understand your concern because if you look at the season as a whole and you break it down, you only look at the first 6, 7, 8 games, it was devastatingly bad. Really bad. It's hard to take a first-round pick and see the lows. But if you can assume that there's going to be a philosophy change, and I hope there is, and I love the one thing that I found that I was digging a little bit deep, and I read that they have this new offensive kind of a zone blocking scheme. I think it's called a pinch and pull, something to that effect, where the guards essentially are pulling and the tackles are more breaking down inside on the defensive end and the linebackers. And it got Joe Mixon out in space, and it got him one-on-one, which is what he does as good as anybody in that first round. There is concern, of course, if the defense is, if they're stacking the box. But I think Joe Burrow adds something that they never had last year, is an actual passing threat. That's the one sense of hope that I have for Mixon.
But they were leading a lot of their games at the tail end of the season last year, right? Do you think the Bengals go into this year the same they did the last 4 or 5 games, where they were having close games, where they were they were pushing good opponents. I can't see that happening. I saw Jake Thompson also make a comment about, if you believe in Derrick Henry, you believe in Joe Mixon. They're very two running backs. You're talking about Derrick Henry, who's pretty much a defensive end who happens to carry the ball and has lightning speed. That's not Joe Mixon. We're talking about a little dude that you've got to feed 20-plus touches in the hope that he's going to crush it. He's not a guy who, on the 5-yard line, he's got a good chance to punch it in. I see what you're saying, but we've got a new quarterback there. The wide receivers, look, there may be a chance that AJ Green doesn't suit up the whole year, and you've got Tyler Boyd as the number one again. Teams double cover him, then it's all on Joe Mixon. I can't see them leading games, giving Joe Mixon touches when that's the case.
Yeah, I feel, David, I feel like you're talking more on Joe Mixon's talent, and I think Joe Mixon is, talent-wise, probably a top 6 or 7 running back in the league, where they just mentioned Derrick Henry and Joe Mixon. I think those are – if you believe in Derrick Henry, you don't have to believe in Joe Mixon. Derrick Henry's on a good football team. He's running behind a pretty solid line. His defense is stellar, and it's a run-first team. The Bengals are going to be they're going to be down a lot. They're going to be throwing from behind. There's no guarantee that offensive line is fixed. So
it's not.
I'm not drafting Joe Mixon because of anything against Joe Mixon. I'm not drafting Joe Mixon because he plays for the Bengals.
Would you pick him in the second round?
No.
You're just avoiding him
Oh,
altogether.
come on, guys.
I mean,
Come
Austin
on,
Eckler.
now we're getting crazy here.
Most of the time I'm picking in the second round, I find myself seeing Austin Eckler and guys like that around.
Aaron, it's
don't
fitting
use
that
the
last
bad
week-
team. You can't use a bad team because let's look at some of the top picks overall. I believe the number one pick. Now, granted, I'm not comparing CMC's talent to Joe Mixon necessarily, but
This is a great comparison, though, Nate.
Carolina is as bad as you're going to get. They're going to be. I bet they win half the games that Cincinnati wins.
Well,
Now that math could be very simple because it could be 2 and 4. But
But
also,
CMC is basically their wide receiver one.
too. I mean,
Saquon and CMC are exceptions to the rule. They're
Exception.
very much exceptions to the rule.
And it's not that I'm saying the Bengals are bad. It's more running backs rely on their O-line, and I just cannot get behind Joe. I mean, I saw what he did behind that bad O-line in the beginning of the season. It's not Joe Mixon. It's the offensive line I don't want to trust.
You put them on a level playing field behind good offensive lines, you'll take either of them. But that's just not how the case is right now.
That's not how football works.
Now he's been paid. He doesn't have that stress. What, he got $12 million a year? I mean, he doesn't have to worry about playing for a good contract. He's got paid. He's good. So I don't know. Kamara last year had a rough start of the year, but we knew that was because of injury. He came back, and his tail end, the last 7-8 games, that was the Kamara that we knew. Joe Mixon was healthy all year long. He just happened to have a bad 8 games. They fed him a little bit more. Very, very much chalk and cheese, in my opinion.
so can I? Before we go, I know we're up against the time here. This is like this conversation about first round running backs is the reason why I think we're drafting all wrong this year. And I just want to make this known. We've drafted wrong the whole offseason. We should have been drafting the wide receivers. We should have been drafting the guys that we knew were going to get the points, the Julios, the Devontae Adams, the Godwins, these top wide receivers that were easily had in the first round in every draft you were in. You could have had any of those guys, and you passed up on them for these running backs that were now like, well, this, well, that. All these question marks about running backs. It happens every single year. We get trapped and fooled into thinking that we need to draft our running backs early, and then those guys disappoint.
I think it's a great point. To be completely honest, I mean, let's say you're at the tail end and you can get yourself a Michael, maybe not Michael Thomas, he's gone too early, but let's say DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones. You've got your wide receivers sorted for the year. You can now play around with the running backs. You can try pick up, Leonard Fournette later in the draft. You can you can see if you can get Miles Sanders for a bargain if he pays off, or get those mid-round guys. Maybe Singletary does pop off, but you've got a lot more.
Oh, whoa! Did you?
I said maybe. Very much maybe.
He's coming around.
There was a big
yes.
question mark. Big question mark.
Yes. Next, he's gonna hate Gus Edwards next week.
but like DeAndre Swift, I know he's injured, but that's a guy who might be a 3-down back. So you raise a good point in that you can solidify your wide receivers. Let's say you get a Mark Andrews in the third, so you got tight end and wide receivers sorted. Play around with your running backs all year and just fix that, fine tune it.
Yeah, I'm just going to be honest. Wide receiver is a lot easier to play around with. I feel like in season, I can get 10 to 12 points from my wide receiver position any week. Running back, if you don't have your running backs, it's a struggle, serious struggle.
But if you invest in your first 3 rounds of running backs and they turn out to be this, these guys who are injured or sharing time like Chubb with Hunt or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you wasted so much draft capital, draft value on those guys so early. Like on wide receivers, you don't have to invest early, but when you do, you got the guy. Calvin Ridley's not going to pass up Julio Jones in the pecking order. Just not happening.
Right. And look, you talk about wide receivers. Those guys, DeAndre Hopkins and Julio, just naming those two. If they put up 160 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game, we're not shocked, right? But if you get 160 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns from your running back, you're pretty darn impressed. How many times have we seen Zeke Elliott go for 75 yards and a touchdown? If you get 75 yards receiving, out of your wide receiver, it's okay, but you're not that impressed. If I know that I can get combined 300 yards from 2 quality receivers and 3 to 4 touchdowns every week, that really, really balances the scale where you could have some mediocre running backs and win your week.
Yeah, because last year I knew I could play a wide receiver against the Eagles basically any week, and I'd be good.
You know what I think is funny in the fantasy football world? For as much as we say that nobody plays in standard or non-PPR anymore, we still think in standard and non-PPR ways by saying, okay, we'll take the volume of a running back over the reception upside of a wide receiver. If you're going to adapt to the times in one scenario, in terms of favoring more reception-heavy leagues, then you got to adjust your thinking as far as what's really valuable. If it's Josh Jacobs or Devonta Adams, I don't even have to think about that. I'm taking Devonta Adams, and I'm not saying you can't go running back, wide receiver in your drafts this year. In fact, I kind of, being somebody who wants to take a more balanced approach in 2020, I would be okay with that. But this notion that you just have to go running back heavy in this draft, considering all the crazy news we're hearing about the running back position, I don't think that's a valid point. I think you can go wide receiver, running back, wide receiver, running back. That's just my take, and for what it's worth,
it is a good take. The concern that I have is historical and empirical evidence that state, and shows that 3rd through 5th round running backs have a really high miss rate. And that's what sucks is if you take you're kind of doing that crapshoot in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I would love to have Chris Carson. I think Chris Carson would be a very stable RB1 to have. The problem is if you don't have a chance to take him and you're stuck with that just cesspool, and I'm sorry to say it like that, but of the David Johnson, James Conner, Bill, that group, Lev Bell, et cetera, that gets into that grouping, you have to hit. Because if not, then you're scrambling constantly for that. And I'm sorry. I personally would much rather have a Mixon, Josh Jacobs, followed by Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, and TJ, and McLaurin wide receiver grouping, than have Devontae Adams and then have to try to mix and match. But then again, that's the beautiful part about fantasy is you can win with any combination as long as you. Well, honestly, this is for everybody. As long as you get lucky, and that's going to have to go in.
Wow.
All
right.
You probably will not win with 0 RB strategy, though.
Yeah,
that's the one.
You're not relying on Kareem Hunt as your RB1, and I think that's what people confuse with 0 RB. And that's what you can wait till the 3rd round and get, like you were saying, a DJ or a Lev Bell or even a Gurley late in the mid-3rd round. And those would be, I think, viable running back options. But you hit on something that I think everybody needs to hear. You can win in a multitude of ways. You can construct your roster in a multitude of ways.
You just have to score more points than your opponent.
That's all you have to do.
That's literally all you do.
And you have to be smart. You have to know which players to target early in your drafts. You got to know which players to target late in your drafts. And you know where you can go do that. You can do that at fantasyandframes.com. Read all of our articles. You like that, Nate? You can read all of our articles that we have up there.
I see what you did there.
Thank you very much, David. We have all the sleeper players that you should target in your drafts, which everybody worked on really hard this summer. We have our 4-eyed observations where we looked at all the different players that we have questions about that are fantasy relevant for each team. All 32 teams, we have 32 articles talking about the big questions from each team and which players you should invest in. We have our draft rankings up there. Next week, as we get into week 1, all of our stuff will shift towards week 1 content and going forward. And folks, this coming year, we're going to have a lot of content coming at you here from Fantasy and Frames. Just to give you a little spoiler alert, last year, Aaron, you were here. We were putting out 3 articles a week in a podcast. This year, we're going to have 6 articles a week. We're going to have 6 live stream podcast episodes a week. We're going to be introducing daily fantasy content to you, folks. Spoiler. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming your way. We're going to have a lot of great guests on, like David from Fantasy Go, join us as much as we can get them on. We're going to have a lot of stuff here for you to win fantasy football championships, and we can't wait to do that. So with that, let's just say goodnight, everybody, and thank you all very much for joining us this week. Enjoy your last week of drafting, because this time next week, we're talking week 1.
Football next week, baby.
Pinch and pull. Pinch and pull, Nate.
Pinch and pull. Thank you very much. And Jake, to answer your question, Kareem Hunt would be a top 8 back if you ask me if Chubb's gone.
Not 7 or 9, but top 8.
Top 8. Top 8.
I'll give you top 7.
Stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Bye.